Hello, guys. Professor Howard here, and welcome to week 2 of our course on comparative politics here at Rasmussen College. This week we're having an interesting discussion as we are starting to look at our nations. Last week was more of an overview week. We looked at certain issues such as the global economy, climate change, environmental issues, types of government, democracies, and those kind of things. This week we're starting to look at in our readings and in our class on some very hardcore issues dealing with specific nations. Now, the first nation we come up with is our own. We're looking at the United States. And a question always get asked is, why do we examine the United States when it comes to comparative politics? And I guess the best answer to that is you always see the United States addressed first in comparative politics because we have to refresh ourselves on how our government works. We're looking at concepts like checks and balances, separation of powers, our 3 branches of government, the executive, legislative, judicial, along with the bureaucracy in terms of all of our government agencies and the services they provide. So we need to refresh ourselves on our Constitution, federalism, all of the good concepts that work here in the United States. And we will start then by looking at some of our closest allies in the world. We will look at nations tonight, Great Britain and France, which have always been traditional United States allies. Plus, it's a concept we're looking at as we're examining different parts of the world. We're going to look at what we refer to as the Western democracies of Europe and the traditional democracies that have existed in the Western part of Europe. We're going to be looking at a little bit of their differences with the United States. They are what we refer to as a European socialist system. And in a European socialist system, they are considered still a democracy. They do vote for their leaders and their government. But their government does provide a lot more services than what we see here in the United States. They have more state-funded medical systems, state-funded transportation, state-funded infrastructure, state-funded education. So a lot more investment on the part of the public sector than what we see here in the U.S. We often complain in the United States about the size of our government and the cost of government, and that kind of pales in comparison when you compare it to some of the things we see in Europe and other parts of the world. But it is interesting. Well, we're going to examine European socialism in a way, too, that we need to examine some strains on European socialism. We've seen it in Greece. Italy and Portugal are having issues as well, too, and Britain has indicated at some points they have issues, which is the fact that if you're going to have the government pay for all these systems or provide all these systems, they're going to have to come out with a way to pay for all these systems. And in that situation, that is causing a strain on government because nations like Greece, whose gross domestic product is entirely based on an industry like tourism, could not afford to pay for all their services all the time. So it put a strain on government, and we've seen the Greece economy on the verge of collapse several times. We kind of heard that a little bit in Britain. Britain has made some comments about needing to cut back on services because the amount of money the nation generates just simply can't pay for everything. And so we'll be looking at European socialism in terms of an economic system, and is it a viable economic system on a going forward basis? We also look at Europe, these nations, in terms of how Britain is what we refer to as a cabinet government. They have massive bureaucracy in Great Britain. A lot of these cabinets oversee various large parts of the society. There's a cabinet on education, cabinet on infrastructure, cabinet on medicine. So we will examine how they break up their government in these types of systems as well also. We'll also see the makeup of the British government, how it is under the House of, its parliament is divided into the House of Commons and House of Lords. And we'll talk about how their leader, which is the Prime Minister, who is currently Ms. May, is chosen from the majority party in Parliament. So they don't have a separate executive election like we have here in the United States. The party with the majority chooses one of its members to become the Prime Minister. And we'll look at the difference between our direct election systems here in the United States and proportional representation systems in Europe, how even losing parties get seats in Parliament. France is a little bit different. France has a very strong president. It also has a prime minister, but the prime minister is not like the powerful person in Great Britain. The president has the most power in France. And they also have a very European socialist system, and we'll examine France and its history and how the current government has come into play. And other than that, guys, things to remember this week. Remember that your initial posts on the discussion board are due by the end of the day Wednesday. Replies are due by the end of the day on Friday. So please make sure you're getting all most of your discussion postings done. We do have an assignment this week, which is our French questions paper. The grading rubric is loaded up in there. And one of the things to look at here, guys, is in examining the French questions, it's going to ask you a series of 5 questions. Make sure you're addressing all of them. It also says to put it in terms of a marketing type portfolio or brochure. Students have asked me, did they have to put in a brochure in the past? I've said that you can turn it into me either way. So you can do it either as a brochure or as a straight paper answering all the questions that are asked. So I will take it either way, guys. If you want to do it as a paper, or if you want to do it as a brochure, that's a great way to do it too. Also remember, in terms of our big paper, you need to be choosing your main topics. So please look at the 3 nations, figure out which one you want to do. Send me a quick email. I'll respond to you guys approving that topic. Remember, your choices are limited to Nigeria, the United States, and Mexico. You cannot choose a nation other than those three. So please be looking at that as well also. And finally, guys, remember too, we have our live seminar, and I hope to see you guys in the live seminar. I know attendance sometimes can be an issue. We have different things going on in our lives, but it'd be great to see a good number of the class in seminar participating and learning about the nations that we are discussing every week. With that, guys, have a great week. If you need to get a hold of me, remember you can contact me by phone, text, or email, and I will respond to you guys as quickly as I can. And with that, guys, I will see you on our discussion board and in our class.